You can't rewind the clock, nor should you try to chase someone who's already gone. My past is a mosaic, and my wife played a significant role in it. Then one day, without a word, she left, packed her bags and walked out, leaving me with 2 kids, a boy and a girl. Ain't no heartless machine, though. I forgave her. Don't tell me how I should feel. If she chose that path, it must mean something in our life didn't sit right with her. I'm not wallowing in tears. I'm just stating facts. On quiet evenings, strolling through the park near our home, memories of our walks there with Natalie would creep in. I'd hear her laughter, see her spinning in the breeze like she was dancing to the rhythm of the wind. Her hair, soft and golden, framed her shoulders as if sculpted by divine hands. Then loneliness hit me. Hard. I wanted to drown it out, drink, forget, numb myself to the constant reminders of what life used to be. My friend knew the basics of my troubles, though don't think I went whining about my heartbreak. That's not my style. Mom intervened. She called Alex and said that I was drowning in despair, engulfed in the flames of my own longing. She said that I needed to be rescued, otherwise I would not have survived. Alex, our family's favourite, was her lifeline when she brought the news to me. Not even a blood relative, Alex was more of a brother, my childhood friend, and the fearless protector of our neighbourhood back in the day. Now living in Amsterdam, he had built a life for himself there. One day, he called and made a suggestion. Move here. Bring the kids. Start fresh. Honestly, I was relieved. Staying in a place where every corner screamed of her wasn't doing me any good. I wasn't jumping into a void, though. As a programmer with a solid background, I knew I'd find work easily. Plus, I had a decent grasp of the language. I checked and rechecked everything. Sure, moving to a new country with its own quirks, traditions, and lifestyle might unsettle the kids. But hey, they're resilient. I believed they'd adapt. While prepping for the move, I wrapped up loose ends back home. Packing our things, I stumbled across my wife's wedding dress tucked away in the closet. Curiosity got the better of me, so I unfolded it, and something fell to the floor with a sharp clink. It caught me off guard. The object rolled under the couch. When I fished it out, I froze. It was Natalie's gold wedding ring, the one I had placed on her finger on our wedding day. It hit me like a punch to the gut. Why? Why would she leave that behind? I couldn't make sense of it. Our life wasn't perfect, but it wasn't bad. She was stunning. I had a good career, no bad habits, and we had 2 wonderful kids. What else did happiness require? Even our intimate life was intense. Let's just say the walls weren't exactly soundproof. Maybe it was me, in my habits, in my behavior. But she never complained. We've always had an open line of communication, or so it seemed to me. Now, I'll never know the truth. Of course, you can call it lamentation, but when your whole world collapses overnight, it deeply hurts. A marriage collapses in the blink of an eye. I left the apartment with Mom, thinking maybe one day I'd return. It was a safety net, a fallback. Armed with a temporary residence permit, the kids and I plunged into the unknown, bracing for the challenges ahead. Whoever said life was easy? Amsterdam welcomed us with open arms. The city was amazing, clean, charming, and strangely reminiscent of my hometown. I didn't feel like a stranger. I felt at home. Thanks to Alex, I quickly found a job. He ran his own software development company and needed someone with my skills. Time marched on. Between work, the kids, and new friendships I rebuilt. We bought a house, carved out a life, and honestly, I was doing well. The paycheck was good, the lifestyle better. We had everything we needed. 2 years slipped by in a blur. I hadn't met anyone new, romantically, that is. It still felt too soon, like my heart hadn't quite healed. The wound was fresh, etching in a way only time and resilience might mend. Of course, I kept all of that bottled up. On the outside, I appeared composed and control, but inside the pain gnawed at me. Emotionally, I was managing, but physically, that was another story. Let's face it, you can't define nature. My body craved intimacy, and my life? It needed a fresh start. No point in taking a vow of silence forever. Then Lana appeared. She has lived in Amsterdam since childhood, and her parents brought her here. Thanks to our common roots, everything seemed easier, not so alien. We agreed to meet at a charming outdoor cafe that thrives in Amsterdam's cool but indulgent weather. I hoped that this meeting would give an impetus to something new. I showed up prepared, roses in hand, their fragrance mingling with the crisp air. Greeting her with a kiss on the hand, I pulled out a chair, gesturing for her to sit. She smiled, intrigued, and I found myself wondering if I might actually get another chance at love. Not to brag, but in my younger days, and even now, I wasn't exactly short on admirers. Women were drawn to me, though I never let it go to my head. We settled into conversation. I told her about my kids, my job, the journey that had brought me here. Lana shared her story too, her family, her career, her outlook on life. Everything was flowing naturally, like we were old friends catching up. But then she asked about my wife. Why had she left? What had gone wrong? The question hit me like a brick. What could I say? The truth? That she'd left without a word, leaving behind nothing but questions. Who would believe that? People don't just up and leave for no reason. There's always something. But I didn't have a something, just a gaping hole where answers should have been. I decided to be honest, to tell Lana exactly what I knew. Life is messy, unpredictable. Sometimes people make choices that defy explanation. As I spoke, I watched her expression shift. Her brows furrowed, her lips tightening. She didn't believe me. Lana leaned in, her voice sharp. There's always a reason, she said. Someone is always at fault. Maybe you just don't want to admit it. Men make mistakes too. Or maybe you cheated on her. Did you? The accusation landed like a slap. Her eyes narrowed, brimming with disdain. Her voice grew louder, her posture tense. She leaned back abruptly, and her chair creaked under the motion. Finally she snapped. Men are all the same, always chasing after the next skirt. You know what? You all deserve to have your balls cut off. Her words burned, but I was frozen, unable to counter her assumptions. She was convinced. I was guilty in her eyes, no matter what I said. I wanted to defend myself, to explain, but I knew it was pointless. My story, as true as it was, sounded absurd to anyone else. A lump rose in my throat, my chest tightening with a mix of frustration and helplessness. I left the cafe in a daze, my emotions in chaos. The fresh air didn't help. I couldn't breathe. My steps felt aimless, but somehow I made it home. Collapsing onto the bed, I stared blankly at the ceiling, its light searing my tired eyes. But I didn't care. Anger bubbled beneath the surface, and I found myself thinking, if the mountain won't come to me, then I'll go to the mountain. Something snapped inside me. I got up, checked on the kids, tucked them into bed, and threw on a jacket. Midnight had come and gone, but I didn't care. Pulling my hat low over my face like a cowboy in some old western, I left the house. I didn't have a perfect plan or even a coherent thought. I just knew where I needed to go. The streets were quiet, deserted. My steps echoed in the stillness, each one fueled by the storm inside me. Anyone who might have seen me would have thought twice about crossing my path. My face must have been twisted with such raw emotion, like a bull ready to charge a matador. Determination guided my steps, even as everything else felt like it was falling apart. So, here I am, right in the middle of the red light district. My once firm resolve had vanished, leaving behind a muddled swirl of uncertainty. The streets here are tight, almost claustrophobic. Women sway provocatively in window displays, their hips moving rhythmically to lure passers-by. Their outfits, bold and tantalizing, clinging to their slender, almost ethereal frames. For 20 minutes, I wandered aimlessly, too hesitant to approach anyone. My pace was slow, almost sluggish, and words failed me entirely. Then, I saw her, or thought I did. Natalie, standing in a window framed by a sign that screamed "Strip Club." It hit me like a freight train. This had to be some sick joke, right? A surreal nightmare playing tricks on me. My mind raced. This isn't real. It just can't be. Things like this don't happen. I must have been cracking under the pressure, slipping into some kind of delusional haze. Still, I couldn't let it go. My feet moved before I could stop them, carrying me toward the showcase. She was there, or was she? My breath hitched, and instinctively, I pulled the brim of my cowboy hat low, shoving my hands deep into my pockets to keep them from trembling. As I neared the club, something icy brushed against my fingers, startling me. I jerked my hand away, but quickly plunged it back to investigate. What I found made my stomach drop. It was smooth, cold, and unmistakable. A ring. Not just any ring, her ring, Natalie's. My mind spiraled. What the hell? How could this be? Was it some bizarre coincidence? Or worse, was it leading me straight to her? I couldn't shake the doubt. Is it even her? I needed proof, something concrete. My imagination was running wild, sure, but the ring? That felt like a sign, a breadcrumb I couldn't ignore. I had to know for certain. The only way was to see her up close. If it really was her, there'd be no mistaking it. Heart pounding, I made my way to the receptionist. Forcing a calm I didn't feel, I requested a private dance from the girl in the window. The receptionist didn't bat an eye, just took my money and waved me toward a booth. My nerves were shot, but I kept my head low, the hat still shielding my face. When she finally appeared, I stole a quick glance, and my gut twisted. It's her. It had to be. But I couldn't let myself fully believe it. Not yet. I needed more proof. So I sat there, motionless, as she began to move. She twirled around the pole, her body twisting with an effortless grace that almost distracted me from my mission. Almost. Piece by piece, she teased at her bikini, every movement deliberate, controlled. Elevated on the podium, she loomed over me. Then it happened. She turned, and I saw it, the spider tattoo. My chest tightened as if my heart was trying to break free. That was it. There was no longer any doubt. My hand instinctively reached for the ring. Without a second thought, I flung it at her feet. The small metallic sound it made as it hit the floor was barely audible over the thunderous hard rock blaring through the speakers. But it was enough. Her eyes caught the movement, snapping to the ring as it skidded to a halt. Time froze. She stood there, stock still, staring at it like it held all the answers to the universe. Then, as if struck by lightning, she spun around, her eyes wild with recognition. Before I could react, she lunged forward and tore the hat off my head. In that moment, I was utterly speechless. She dropped to her knees, covering her face with trembling hands, curling into herself as if the weight of the world had finally crushed her. Her body pressed against the floor, small and vulnerable. I stood there for a moment, motionless, then pulled my hat back on and started walking away, my steps slow and deliberate. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The very air in that place felt suffocating, thick with regret and disgust. Inside, my emotions churned like a storm. Anger, betrayal, confusion. Can I even forgive her? The question gnawed at me. Sure, I wasn't perfect, but this? What she did, how could she? My thoughts clashed, spiraling into endless arguments with myself, none offering clarity. Just as I reached the door, a piercing cry shattered the noise in my head. Then, like a dead weight, a body slammed into my legs. Through her tears, she began to speak. Her words tumbled out in broken fragments, each one heavier than the last. She told me how she'd left, chasing the promise of a movie role abroad. Some smooth-talking jerk had swept her off her feet, promising fame and fortune. She'd fallen for him, head over heels, convinced he was her ticket to a better life. But reality had a cruel way of showing itself. After just 2 months in Amsterdam, the dream crumbled. He turned out to be a monster, someone who saw her not as a partner, but as something to control and abuse. He beat her, humiliated her, and finally, when he was done, threw her out, barely clothed, onto the cold, unforgiving streets. That's how she ended up here, selling pieces of herself to survive, dancing under blinding lights for strangers. When I mentioned the kids, our kids, she broke down even further. Her voice cracked as she begged to see them, swearing that not a day had passed without her thinking about them. She pleaded, desperate, her words a mixture of remorse and longing. "I'd do anything," she sobbed, her hands clutching at my shirt. "Please, let me see them. I need to see them." I took a deep breath, the weight of the moment pressing on me. "You can see the kids," I said evenly, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. "I'm not going to stand in the way of that. They deserve to know their mother, no matter what you did. But us, that's done. Over." She froze, her grip slackening as my words sank in. "I don't want anything to do with you anymore," I continued, my gaze fixed on the ground in front of me. "You made your choices, and now you have to live with them. Deal with your problems on your own." With that, I stepped away, leaving her crumpled on the ground behind me. The street swallowed me whole, but her cries followed, haunting every step I took.